It's one of those Oregon mornings where the air feels like cold coffee, damp, bitter, and slightly offended that you went outside. Cedarvale, a quiet pocket of green surrounded by tall firs and retired dreamers, was waking up to another drizzly April day. The kind of town where people waved to passing cars not because they knew who was inside, but because there was a 70% chance they'd bump into them at the grocery store later. And in the middle of that sleepy, overcast calm stood Eli Thompson, age 38, wrapped in a hoodie that had seen more coffee stains than wash cycles. His porch was cluttered with boxes, one of them stamped with a cheery logo reading, "Grow Together, Beginner's Houseplant Kit." He stared at it like it contained a bomb. "Okay," Eli muttered, "how hard can it be to keep a plant alive? Sun, water, love. That's basically what I give myself." A pause. "Okay, maybe not the sun part." Eli was a freelance graphic designer, which was a fancy way of saying he worked from home in sweatpants, lived on black coffee, and occasionally forgot that Tuesdays existed. He bought the plant after hearing his sister Tina go on a rant about bringing life into your space. She'd meant metaphorically. Eli, misunderstanding or perhaps deliberately ignoring nuance, ordered a fern online because he liked how low maintenance it sounded, like a dating profile with trust issues. Overcast suburban street in Cedarvale, Oregon, soft morning drizzle, small pastel-colored houses with porches, Eli standing in his hoodie beside stacked Amazon boxes. The fern arrived with a glossy instruction booklet titled, "Caring for Your New Green Companion." The phrase made him feel emotionally unprepared. The plant, which he named Steve, looked unimpressed, leaves drooping slightly, as if anticipating its doom. By day 3, Steve's soil was bone dry. By day 5, it was drowning. By day 6, Eli had already Googled, how to tell if your plant hates you. Across the white picket fence, Maggie Rivera, his 70-something neighbor, was sipping coffee in her floral apron. Her yard looked like a botanical explosion, hydrangeas, tulips, something climbing up a trellis that looked suspiciously expensive. "You overwatered again," she called, not even looking up from her crossword. "You can tell by the leaves." Eli blinked. "You can tell that from over there." "Honey, I can tell from space." Maggie leaning on her fence with a mug, surrounded by flowers in full bloom, amused expression watching Eli's chaotic watering. Maggie had the gentle tone of someone who'd once raised both children and azaleas successfully, and could lecture you about either. She was Cedarvale's unofficial plant whisperer. Every house on the block had at least one of her donation cuttings. Then there was Noah Jenkins, the 12-year-old next door who carried a garden hose like a knight with a sword. He had a YouTube channel, Noah Grows Stuff, where he posted hyper-enthusiastic tutorials about composting. His parents assumed it was a phase. Eli, meanwhile, wasn't sure the kid wasn't secretly running a suburban empire. "Mr. Thompson," Noah shouted one Saturday, sprinting up the sidewalk. "You know you're supposed to talk to the plant, right? They like it. Talk to it." Eli frowned. "What do I even say?" "Encouraging stuff. Like, you can do it. Or, grow, buddy." "Okay," Eli said dryly. "So like parenting, but quieter." Noah holding a garden hose with an oversized grin, Eli standing on his porch awkwardly talking to a fern. The first week was slapstick chaos. Eli's watering can leaked. His cat Larry mistook the soil for a litter box. At one point, Eli tripped over the porch step and accidentally launched the fern halfway into the yard. It was, objectively, not going well. His sister Tina visited one Sunday afternoon, arms crossed, espresso in hand. "You can design a whole website from scratch, but a fern breaks you." Eli gestured toward the wilted thing. "It's not dying, it's evolving." Tina snorted. "Into compost." Tina standing with coffee cup in hand, teasing Eli while he gestures helplessly at a droopy fern. Eli laughed it off, but the truth was, he felt oddly defeated. He'd moved to Cedarvale after a breakup, chasing quiet and new beginnings. But most days, he still felt stuck, creatively, personally, existentially. The fern, ridiculous as it was, became a mirror. He couldn't seem to keep it alive because he wasn't sure what thriving even looked like anymore. That night, as the rain tapped the windows and the house smelled faintly of burnt toast, Eli sat on the couch watching motivational videos, the kind with overly cheerful hosts saying things like, "Water your goals daily." He glanced at Steve, the wilted fern sitting under the faint glow of a table lamp. "Fine," he sighed. "Tomorrow, we start over." The next morning, the sky opened up in that weird Oregon way. Not heavy rain, just a constant mist, as if the clouds couldn't commit. Eli made coffee, pulled on his sneakers, and decided to make a ritual out of it: watering, trimming, talking. Maggie nodded approvingly when she saw him. Consistency, dear, that's the trick. Little drops, every day. Is that gardening advice or life coaching? Eli asked. Same thing. Eli in a hoodie, watering a small plant on his porch in the morning mist, Maggie visible next door smiling knowingly. Days passed. Eli started setting reminders on his phone. Water Steve, you coward. It worked. Slowly, the fern perked up. A new shoot appeared, small and defiant. It wasn't dramatic, no cinematic bloom or triumphant music, just quiet, steady life. It felt good, simple, manageable, something to look forward to between Zoom calls and empty afternoons. Noah stopped by one afternoon, holding a bag of soil. You need nutrients, the kid announced. Plants are like people. They get cranky if you feed them the same thing every day. Eli grinned. You sound like my ex. Noah blinked. That's probably not good. Noah handing Eli a bag of potting soil, Eli laughing with coffee in hand, Larry the cat sitting nearby watching suspiciously. Through May, Cedarvale transformed. Lawns brightened, kids played basketball on driveways, and neighbors exchanged tomato seeds like currency. Eli's porch began to look alive again, still messy, but colorful now. He even bought a small hanging planter because, as he put it, Steve deserves friends. Of course, Larry disagreed. One morning, Eli woke to find the cat perched smugly on the windowsill beside a trail of spilled dirt. Steve was fine, but one of the hanging pots hadn't survived the feline assault. Maggie just laughed when Eli complained. Life breaks things sometimes, Eli. Doesn't mean it's all ruined. You just plant again. Larry the cat sitting amid spilled soil on the porch, Eli facepalming, morning sun lighting up the mess. June arrived with its mix of sunshine and indecision. Oregon summers always felt like they were running on a slow internet connection, moments of brightness buffering between clouds. Eli started going on walks. Sometimes he'd stop by Maggie's yard just to watch her prune roses with surgical precision. Other times, he'd bring Larry along in a cat backpack, something that amused every neighbor except Larry. People started noticing the changes. His sister called less to scold and more to ask for updates. His clients said his designs looked happier lately. Even his posture improved, though he credited that to carrying watering cans instead of existential dread. One evening, as the sun dipped golden through the pines, Eli stood on his porch and looked at Steve. The fern swayed gently in the breeze, alive, healthy, quietly stubborn. He smiled. Guess we're both doing better. Golden hour sunlight filtering through Eli's porch, healthy green plants glowing softly, Eli standing with coffee mug, content expression. That night, Cedarvale buzzed with neighborhood laughter, a weekend potluck down the street, clinking dishes, music drifting faintly through open windows. It wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. And for Eli, that was enough. The next morning, he found a small note tucked under his welcome mat. It was from Noah, scrawled in bright green marker. Your fern is awesome. You should try succulents next. They're like lazy plants, you'd relate. Eli chuckled, shaking his head. Kids got jokes. He stuck the note on his fridge beside a grocery list and a magnet that read, Progress, not perfection. Fridge door with a handwritten note from Noah beside magnets and a to-do list, soft morning light through kitchen window. Weeks blended into a rhythm, work, coffee, water, trim, breathe. The fern grew fuller. Eli started journaling again, something he hadn't done in years. He even signed up for a local gardening Facebook group, though he mostly lurked and laughed at over-enthusiastic debates about compost. By mid-July, Cedarvale was in full bloom. Kids chased ice cream trucks, sprinklers hissed on front lawns, and Maggie hosted her annual garden gossip brunch, where Eli was the reluctant guest of honor. Look at you, Maggie announced to the table of retirees, pointing her fork at him. 6 months ago, you couldn't keep moss alive, and now you're out here giving gardening advice. Eli smirked. To be fair, I still can't keep moss alive. But I've accepted that as part of my journey. Everyone laughed. Backyard brunch scene with neighbors laughing around a table, colorful plants in the background, Maggie raising her coffee mug toward Eli. And later that evening, sitting under the porch light, Eli realized something quietly profound. Growth hadn't come from dramatic reinvention. It had come from showing up, every day, with a watering can and a little more patience than yesterday. The fern didn't just survive, it taught him how to. Picture prompt 11. Nighttime porch glow, Eli sitting with cup of tea beside the healthy fern, calm smile, cat curled nearby. Sometimes, the smallest act of care, a few drops of water, a quiet morning ritual, is how we remind ourselves that we're still growing, too. Cedarvale had its own rhythm by late summer, the kind that made time feel elastic. Days stretched lazily, evenings arrived golden and soft, and even the air carried a scent of distant barbecues and freshly cut grass. On Maple Street, Eli Thompson's porch had transformed from a minimalist disaster into something that looked like it belonged in a gardening magazine, or at least a mildly successful Pinterest board. Rows of small pots lined the railing, and every morning, Eli emerged with his mug of coffee and that same half-sarcastic, half-serene look of a man who'd accidentally found peace. "Look at you," Maggie called from her yard, pruning roses with her wide-brimmed straw hat. "Your porch looks alive." Eli grinned. "Yeah, I keep expecting it to start charging me rent." Warm morning light on Eli's lush porch, potted plants in neat rows, Maggie next door pruning roses with a hat, coffee steam rising. By now, watering had become a ritual, not a chore. Eli treated it like a meditation. Pour, pause, check leaves, sip coffee, smile. The whole routine took 15 minutes, but it anchored his day better than any productivity hack he'd ever tried. Larry the cat supervised, sitting regally on the railing like a tiny lion overseeing his kingdom. Occasionally, he'd bat at leaves or swat bees, but Eli let him. Even Larry seemed calmer lately, or at least less likely to sabotage houseplants for sport. One morning, Noah appeared at the edge of the porch, holding a plastic trophy. "Mr. Thompson, we're starting a neighborhood garden off. You have to join." Eli blinked. "I have to what now?" "Compete. Best garden gets this trophy and a $25 gift card to Greenleaf Nursery." "Oh, wow. How will I ever spend it?" Eli deadpanned. "Maybe on therapy for my traumatized fern." Noah rolled his eyes. "You're funny for an adult." Noah holding a small golden plastic trophy proudly, Eli holding his coffee and raising an eyebrow, Larry the cat lounging nearby. Maggie leaned over the fence. "Don't you dare say no. You've earned those bragging rights, sweetie." Eli smirked. "You mean from the guy who once killed a cactus?" "Exactly. A redemption arc." Eli signed up reluctantly. He spent the next week trimming, rearranging, and, most surprisingly, enjoying himself. He even made plant labels using his design skills, giving each pot a name: Steve Jr., Leafy McClayface, and one simply labeled, "Please Don't Die." Close-up of Eli's porch plants with funny handmade labels, Maggie laughing in the background, sun streaks across the scene. The big day arrived, Cedarvale's first annual neighborhood garden off. It wasn't exactly the state fair, but the turnout was impressive for a small town. Folding tables displayed potted plants, succulents, homemade jams, and too many lemon bars. Kids ran around with water balloons, and someone's Bluetooth speaker played an endless rotation of 80s hits. Eli, standing next to his modest but charming display, tried not to look too serious about it. Maggie's booth, naturally, looked like the Garden of Eden. Noah had an entire mini ecosystem complete with a compost demo. Feeling intimidated, Maggie teased. Community garden fair with tables of plants, people chatting, Eli and Maggie standing beside the displays under string lights. When the judges made their rounds, the mayor, the librarian, and the owner of the diner, Eli expected polite nods at best. But when they paused by his table, the mayor squinted at Steve Jr. and said, "You know, this one looks happy." Eli chuckled. "Yeah, we've been through a lot together." He didn't win first place, Maggie did, of course. But to everyone's surprise, Eli snagged the Most Improved Gardener ribbon, an honor that came with applause, laughter, and a friendly nudge from Noah, who whispered, "Told you." Eli receiving a small ribbon from the mayor while neighbors cheer, kids clapping, sun flaring softly in the background. That night, Cedarvale glowed under strings of warm fairy lights as people lingered, sharing stories and second helpings of pie. Someone started a karaoke machine, and Eli, against his better judgment, joined Maggie in a duet of "Don't Stop Believin'." The crowd loved it. Larry, perched on the porch railing, flicked his tail in disapproval. Evening garden party scene, warm fairy lights, people laughing, Eli singing karaoke with Maggie, Larry in the background looking unimpressed. By the end of the summer, Eli's porch was the unofficial gathering spot of the street. Neighbors would stop by for a chat, drop off cuttings, or borrow his watering can. Tina even visited again, taking photos for her Instagram story with the caption, "My brother turned into a plant dad." Miracles happen. Eli read it and laughed out loud. He wasn't offended anymore. If anything, he was proud. Growth wasn't glamorous, but it was real, and it smelled faintly of soil and coffee. Tina taking a selfie on Eli's porch surrounded by greenery, Eli photobombing behind her with a watering can, sunny afternoon glow. By early fall, Cedarvale shifted colors. Leaves flamed into oranges and reds. The mornings cooled down, and Eli traded his hoodie for flannels. The plants slowed their growth, but he didn't mind. The watering can stayed by the door, a reminder of what consistency built. He started helping Maggie with her community gardening class at the library. Half the time, they spent more minutes laughing than planting. Noah co-hosted, naturally, and became the star attraction with his Science of Soil demos. One evening after class, Maggie said, "You know, Eli, this all started with one fern." Eli smiled. "Yeah, who knew I'd end up building a jungle?" Maggie chuckled. "That's how life works. You water one thing, and before you know it, you're growing everywhere." Community library workshop with Maggie, Eli, and Noah helping kids plant seeds. Warm indoor lighting and smiling faces. Winter arrived quietly. Rain returned, steady and cleansing. Cedarvale took on a cozy hush. Holiday lights glowing under gray skies, fireplaces crackling behind curtained windows. Eli still watered the plants daily, even though growth slowed. It wasn't about progress anymore. It was about showing up. He'd wake up early, put on his slippers, make coffee, and greet the day the same way. "Morning, Steve." "Morning, Larry. Let's keep it alive." Eli in slippers and flannel robe, holding coffee mug on porch, misty winter morning with string lights around green plants. One particularly stormy afternoon, a gust of wind knocked over one of his hanging pots. Soil scattered everywhere. For a split second, the old Eli, the impatient one, might have cursed, groaned, maybe even given up. Instead, he just laughed. "All right, universe. Message received. Replant and move on." He cleaned it up, replanted the soil, and went inside humming. That moment, small, simple, soaked in rain and irony, was the clearest sign yet that he'd changed. Growth wasn't just visible in his plants anymore. It was in him. Rain-splattered window view of Eli replanting fallen pot in stormlight, calm smile on his face. When spring returned, Cedarvale came alive again, daffodils blooming, lawnmowers buzzing, and the smell of rain giving way to sunlight. Eli's porch, once a cluttered corner of chaos, now looked like the heart of the neighborhood. He even started a new project, a small vegetable patch in the side yard. Maggie dropped by with a basket of tomatoes. "You're practically a farmer now." Eli grinned. "Yeah, give it a few years and I'll start selling kale on Etsy." Maggie handing Eli a basket of tomatoes, porch covered in greenery, bright spring morning. The neighborhood kids started calling him Plant Man, which he pretended to hate but secretly loved. Even Larry had found a sunny spot among the ferns that became his nap throne. One evening, Noah stopped by with a school project about personal growth. He handed Eli a page covered in hand-drawn vines and wrote underneath, "Mr. Thompson taught me that even grown-ups grow." Eli read it twice, maybe 3 times. It was funny how something that started as an accident, an online order and a guilty conscience, had turned into purpose. Close-up of Noah handing Eli his school project paper titled, "Personal Growth," Eli smiling, porch plants visible behind. By now, watering wasn't just about keeping things alive. It was about remembering that progress doesn't need applause. It just needs time and attention. That summer, the second annual garden off rolled around, and Eli's display looked spectacular. He didn't care about winning anymore, he just wanted to share. But when they called his name for Best in Show, Maggie hugged him so hard she almost knocked him over. Eli laughed, shaking his head. "All it took was a little water every day, huh?" Maggie winked. "That's all it ever takes." Eli holding a Best in Show ribbon, Maggie hugging him, neighbors clapping under bright summer sunlight.
Like and subscribe if you want to be happy and motivated.